you go, y'all. Your boy Kuya P. Another ShoPowSho. It's the NRW. Nerds rule the world. Let me bring us in proper like. It's the Adobro, the Babinka boy, the leader of the Holla Holla homies, and the Center Gang Gang. Back for another one. I know I've been kind of lapsed in schedules and getting these up, but I always got love for my peoples. So today I have an amazing musician who's got a brand new EP called Blue. We got that EP crowdfunding going on right now. I'm gonna have the links in the description so you can head over there right now to show love, get that off, and just see the amazingness that it is. And you're gonna learn all about the amazingness of one Ron Blakely, who I'm about to bring him up on the screen right now. Let's bring him up. Boom! Hey! I'm gonna set off some air horns right now. How are you, man? I usually do better intros. I'm sorry on my energy. I try to, because I'm an empath. I'm sure you as an artist too. We're empaths, right? And it's all about that energy exchange. And so it's been a long day, so I'm trying to give you as much as I can.
You know what? And I'll give you some because I have a little bit more energy right now. I know we're in different time zones, so I'll give you what you need, and and vice versa.
Salamat po, Ron. It is a pleasure. And first off, shout out to Dustin, Me Search Podcast with my girl Crystal Tugati. I love them. They set this up, so shout out to Dustin, man.
Yeah, big shout out to Dustin. Love him. I'm so glad that he was able to set this up. Dustin's a great
I love that. It's what we are all about. We're family, despite not having blood. That's what Filipinos are. We support each other, and it's just so amazing, man. So I love that. So again, shout out to Dustin, man. But Ron, we're gonna be new peeps. So I want to know all about my friend Ron that can blow, that can sing. I want to get into the whole life story. But before we do that, you have this new EP. And I want to always show love off the top, especially for brand new projects that we really want to get people's eyes on. Again, I'm going to have the links in the description. But what I read is a little bit on that is this is based off on, some of these songs are inspired because of some recent things that happened in your life. And I think the best music comes from that, but also it's kind of sad too in a different way. So we're sending our love to your family that this is also devoted to, I know in many ways. So tell me about Blue, my friend.
Yeah, so really Blue started in 2020. I lost my mom in early 2020. It was right before the pandemic. It was January 7th is when she passed. She had chronic kidney disease. She was struggling with that for many years. And then she would go to dialysis 3 times a week. And I don't know the details of how this works, but essentially because she was going to dialysis so many times a week and on certain medications for diabetes, it was affecting her heart, and they didn't realize that until much later. And so she had to go into open heart surgery, and unfortunately it didn't take. So so she ended up passing from that. So that was kind of the moment for me where I was because for years before that, I was kind of in this, as far as writing goes, I was kind of in this place of not really knowing what to write about, and also just not really writing at all. I wasn't for years, maybe about 4 or 5 years of not really writing. But when that happened, that was kind of the moment where I was I don't know what else to do. So let me just write, let me just write what I'm feeling. And that's kind of where it started. And then I had a couple of older songs that I was oh, maybe if I add this, I can make a project out of it. And really it started from this place of let me just write songs that remind me of the color blue. And that obviously developed into something much bigger and deeper. Blue is associated with melancholy. It's associated with sadness, but it's also associated with peace and tranquility and healing. And so that's what a lot of the songs represent. A lot of the journey throughout each of the songs is kind of on, like, it kind of emulates that sort of like journey of sadness into like healing and peace, and
Beautiful.
finding like where those ideas meet. But yeah, so it started in early 2020, and then a year after that, I lost my father to COVID-19, and yeah, it was just a sequence of events that I obviously wasn't expecting. And at the time, I have to be like honest, like I was not in a like, as far as my life was going, like I wasn't in the most independent place either. Right after my mom had passed, I moved back in with my dad. I was like, oh, maybe I should go to school. Like, so I was doing some online classes. And then when he passed, I was like, okay. I ended up inheriting his home, a lot of different things where I was like, I really need to take the reins of my life right now because I don't, I'm just kind of floating.
I feel that.
And so that's when music really started to come back into my life. You know, like when I was in my early 20s, I'm 33 now. But when I was in my early 20s, I was like, oh yeah, I'm writing, like I'm going out there, I'm performing in LA, like let me like get myself out there. And then life started to happen, and
Life be lifing.
yeah, life be lifing. And so like I just like really just stopped at least doing that. You know, performing and singing has always been a part of my life, and it always was, even during the time where I wasn't writing or I wasn't sharing my original music. I was still performing in, you know, like musical theater locally, and you know, there was always like an opportunity for me to sing. That's just always been a part of me. But after losing my parents was when I really was like, oh, either this just is a hobby or like this actually becomes like my life. And so, sorry if I
Oh, all the love, brother. All the love.
yeah,
All the
yeah.
love.
So it was really at that time where I was like, no, like Ron, like let's like really try, not just for yourself, but for them. Because they were my like biggest supporters, especially my mom.
Mm.
My mom would go to every show, bro, like every single show. She was there. So it's definitely been like a cathartic and like healing process, like not just writing, but also coming back to like becoming like, or just owning my artistry a little more.
Yeah.
Has been like a super, super healing thing for me
I
so
feel
far.
that.
Yeah, so
Ah,
Blue, like again, like Blue, I've just finished writing what I feel like is the final product.
okay.
So now it's just about raising the funds to get it recorded and get it out there.
Get in the studio and get it
Yeah,
mastered and everything. Wonderful.
exactly.
Well, we're gonna make that happen. Again, everybody, links in the description. My man Ron is putting his heart and soul into this. Oh my gosh. I feel that. Life be life in. We all have our ups and downs in artists. That's what's so crazy as artists, Ron. I'm sure you can agree. They don't call us tortured artists for nothing. You know, if you are in
Literally.
this,
Yeah.
you are in this and through every trial and tribulation, and you kind of like said it as well when you hit that creative dead spot and you
Hmm.
just got to step away and life enters back into the picture to get you inspired, but which is great. You want that authenticity back, you want that knowledge back, but the fact that you had to get there because of it, it's like, really, universe,
I've
really,
literally had
universe.
that conversation. Yes, I've had that conversation with the universe, like with
Yes.
God. Like what, like why did all of these things have to happen for me to get to a place where I'm like, oh, maybe I need to start stepping into my purpose more. Like why? But
Yeah.
that's kind of also the beauty in like life being so up and down. There's kind of this beauty in tragedy. That I think a lot of artists especially resonate with, but people in general. That's why they gravitate toward art, I think. But there's a beauty in the tragic moment in that, like, it does, like, it can either make you or break you, you know? And I definitely had times and still have times where I'm like, maybe it's gonna break me. But the journey is what makes it so beautiful, that like you can be inspired to like grow from something so tragic.
Oh, definitely. If you wouldn't, more we talking, probably if we were in person having a drink, my existence now is, I'm thankful to be here because, you know, I got to that point where I almost, you know, did it to myself. And you get to that point where you never want to get to that low point again. And I'm so thankful you're here. I'm so thankful that the universe is feeding you that energy for your purpose. And all the love to you, Ron. All the love. So Blue, y'all, let's make this happen. We're going to talk about Blue again and how you can support. Again, links are in the description. But we're going to do what we do here, Ron, at the ShoPowSho. I'm going to put my Filipino Oprah hat on.
Okay.
And, and I want to know your story, because I'm sure that will connect even more and will people understand where the soul in Blue comes from. But I'm sure, as you've seen, we like to go back. We love to give that nod to those ancestors in our family to see if the art is in the DNA. Is it in the blood? Can you tell me, were there any people, your mom, pops, you know, family, aunties, uncles, great grandmas? We're Filipinos. I'm sure there's some artists in there somewhere, although they hate to admit it because, you know, they want us to be engineers or whatever.
Okay,
that's a whole nother story.
Or right? Doctors, like, that's so real. It's actually, on both sides of my family. My dad and my mom both listened to a lot of classic soul. So I grew up listening to, like, you know, Al Green, Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, you know, all of those like good soulful voices. My dad used to have me, when he would pick me up from middle school, we used to drive to McDonald's every day, and he would blast Luther Vandross' greatest hits, like, and we would just sing at the top of our lungs, like, for hours. And then my mom also was super into, you know, classic soul, but she also listened to, you know, Patsy Cline, like Crazy was her favorite karaoke song. So I got a lot of my singing though from my mom. Like my mom's side of the family, they were singers. My mom was one of 13.
Wow. We have a lot in common. My mom was the only girl with 12 brothers. So one of 13, sir. I know.
Yeah. A big old family. She was one of 13. She grew up in Eastern Samar, in the Visayas.
Okay.
And I've only been to the Philippines a couple of times. Like I think three times in my life. But I remember the first time I went was when I was 7 years old, and one of my uncles, Uncle Pio, was playing guitar. Drunk. Everyone, they were having this huge party. And I remember my mom kept being like, you need to go to bed. And I'm like, how can I go to bed right now when you guys are singing karaoke and like loud? I'm like, no, I don't want to, like, I want to stay out here. Because my uncle pulled out his guitar and I don't even remember what he sang, but I just remember being so enthralled and just being like, wow, this is this is real. Like that was like my earliest memory of like music affecting me in that way was like my uncle pulling out his guitar and singing and everyone just gathering. And it was just like, it was definitely a life-changing moment because
magical. After
that, you couldn't catch me not singing. I was already singing before that, but after that, it was done. It was over. Yeah, so like my mom used to, you know, sing me lullabies. My mom had a beautiful, beautiful voice. So she's kind of where the love of music came from for me, or the love of singing came from. And then music was both of my parents. And I also come from like a large extended family. Like I said, my mom was one of 13. My dad was one of 6.
Oh, wow.
So my dad is African American. And he was a military dude. He was in the army.
Okay.
So, you know, I just grew up with a lot of like, a lot of really great values, familial values, but also like, because I'm queer. So there was a lot of, you know, family, but also this like uncomfortableness.
Oh, I want to get into that too. And
yeah, we could totally could totally talk about that because, you know, like I'm very close with my family, but there's also this sense of like, and I'm still unpacking this now to this day, but this sense of like not really feeling like I belong, even though I'm a part of this, you know, huge unit. Not really feeling.
They give us that feeling of belonging and family, which is beautiful in our culture and cultures. Because I'm a blended family too. My wife is Black, and we're raising we're a Black and Filipino daughter, which is you. You know, so I know all about that. I recently learned last year the whole thing ShoPowSho got born. I had 2 shout out to the amazing Ates. This show started at the beginning of the pandemic for us as, at the time, believed mixed kids, because they're both mixed, and myself trying to find ourselves and find out more about our Philippine culture. Because as East Coasters, we don't get like Philippine representation and knowledge and history like y'all do out there on the West Coast, especially the Bay Area. You know, they get that deep, and it's not even spoken. We get together around here, but we don't talk about that because we're all trying to assimilate, which is messed up. That's a whole nother thing.
Yeah,
right? Colonizer mindset. You know what I'm talking about. So I'm sorry, I'm going off on a tangent, but it started for us to explore ourselves. But like last year, and I actually talked about this on the last episode, although I'm still kind of keeping it somewhat under wraps. I had a DNA test done.
Okay.
And found out that my biological father is Filipino. So here the whole time I'm thinking I'm a mixed white kid because my birth certificate says this man who's, I love my father that has raised me, but I always knew something was off.
Yeah.
And found out that I'm, you know, because the DNA test, even after I did before with just my mom, said I was 76% Filipino. Like, I'm Filipino as fuck.
Oh, hella.
DNA, I'm Filipino as fuck.
Yeah.
Language. And so it just didn't make sense. And that's something I'm still unpacking. And I'm actually probably I'm a filmmaker. We're probably going to do like a documentary about it. But yeah, it's real. But anyway, I don't, this ain't my story. It's your story. But like
it's all of our stories,
you know, but when we get the culture makes us compartmentalize that because we're also super Christian, you know, raised as Catholic. But I have so many friends as part of the LGBTQIA community. Religion to me has created the most wars than anything, I think, as we all know, you know. And hello, the history of the Philippines, country that colonizes the colonizer, you know, what even are we, you know, in a lot of different ways. So anyway, but I feel you. I'm sorry. I'm off on tangents. I'm getting on a soapbox. You know,
but it's so true. Like we, especially now, like I think there's this connection to our culture and this like connection to each other because we are like this like it's brown people in general. I feel there's something about us that we want to feel, or like we're very community based. And so growing up mixed and then also queer,
Yes.
it was just a very strange feeling. And I was also a very shy child, like growing up, like sometimes like you would catch me not talking to some of my aunts and uncles, like that shy, like
Mm.
that, just like not really like. And I do feel like there was like some fear based ideology that was attached to that I haven't sort of unpacked yet.
I feel you.
But that developed into like this fear of really stating my opinions or fully like owning who I was, or like speaking my mind, because I was like, oh no, I don't want to rock the boat. Like I'm too scared of doing that. And like I think on top of being queer, like you know what I'm saying? Like it just felt like I I could see that like people around me loved me, but I also was like, I don't know if they'd love the real me, you know? So
Mm.
there's like, it's
Yeah.
just like so many layers of just like hiding. That definitely informed like other things later in my life, like as I grew into like becoming like a performing artist, like not fully embracing my artistry because I was like, oh, but like I'm scared of sharing this part of myself.
Yeah.
And now I just feel like that's so silly.
Yeah, right? It's
Like, why was you
crazy.
holding yourself back for so long, man? You know?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's all about the journey, so it's
Ex-
fine. We're here.
Exactly. All the love, all the love. It's just ugh. That's why we're stopping it now for future generations so they don't have to feel restrained. You know, that's what we're teaching our
Yeah.
daughter right now. Like
Yeah.
live your whole self and
For
just all of
you.
that. It's so
Yeah.
so important because we know we were raised with those shackles.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so where were you born? Were you so you Bay Area
I'm not.
cat?
So SoCal. I was born and raised in the Inland Empire, San Bernardino.
Okay.
Still live out here to this day. Yeah, I've always kind of been a Southern California person. Like at I went to college nearby, but then I tried my way to Boston for a
Hold on.
little
Let's bring it
while.
back. Let's do 0 to 5. Let's do
Zero
zero
to
to
five.
8 to 5. I want to go on that journey.
Okay, zero to
Yeah.
five. I mean, so I grew up, yeah, I was born in San Bernardino, and we lived in San Bernardino until I was about 5 years old. I lived in my dad's like childhood home.
So did
They
your
grew up.
parents meet because he was in the military and he was over there?
No,
How did
okay,
they? What is that story?
so that story. Okay. So my mom actually met her first husband, and he was in the Navy.
Okay. Them
And
Navy
so
cats.
yes, and he was also a black man. So I'm just saying, mama.
Okay. I love that for your moms.
Yeah,
Okay.
I do too. But yeah, so her first husband was in the Navy, so she married him and had two of my sisters. They're both the youngest is 21 years older than me. Just to give you some perspective on like the age gap. But yeah, so my mom married him. Basically, moved to the U.S. When the girls were very young, and then she met my dad many years later. She was a part of a bowling league, and right, and so my dad's best friend was also a part of a bowling league, and so they met at this place called the Orange Bowl. It's in San Bernardino. I don't know if it's still functioning as like a bowling alley. I actually have no idea, but like at the time, she was a part of a tournament that his best friend was also a part of, and so they met there and started dating for a little bit, you know, whatever. And I was actually a surprise birth. So
Oh,
my mom was already like, she was dating my dad for, I think, a year and a half or something like that. And she ended up moving in with him. Um, and at the time, so my mom was 42
okay.
when she was pregnant with me. And she was on a diet at the time. And my sister said, so she and my oldest sister, Marianne, they were both on this diet. And my sister said she came home late and she found our mom like in the fridge, like trying to like eat some fried chicken. And she turned around and she was like, Mom, what are you doing? She's like, oh my God, I'm so hungry. I don't know, I'm so hungry. And she looked at her belly and she was like, oh my gosh, it's like bit like, like my mom was getting older, so they just like assumed, like they weren't like thinking anything, but like at one point I kicked and she thought it was like bad gas. They were like, oh, you need to go to the doctor like now. Yeah, crazy. So they end up going to the doctors and finding out that she was 6 months pregnant.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, 6 months pregnant. So, yeah, 3 months later, I was there.
Mm-mm-mm.
Dad's only child. Obviously, like I have two older sisters. And I kind of grew up, yeah, being raised by like my dad and then three moms, basically.
Oh my. Wow.
um,
That's rock and roll. That's music.
yeah, totally. Like I was just like, surprise.
Oh
They were not
man.
expecting me. My parents were older. Like they were just like not. They were just not prepared for a whole baby to show up.
Yeah.
But here I am.
So 0 to 5, the sisters kind of came in and helped raise you and all of that.
Yeah, yeah. My oldest sister was living with us for a majority of that time. The younger sister, she was in and out of law school.
Okay.
So, but yes, basically, like I was raised by my dad and my sisters and my mom. And then when I turned 5 is when we moved to the house that I'm currently living in Bloomington, which is still in San Bernardino County. And yeah, I've been living out here for a long time. And then,
Well, we'll get to that. Let me stay in that 0 to 5.
okay, 0 to 5.
So
Let's do it.
what would they tell me about Ron Blakely between this time period if I was to talk to your parents right now? If they were here,
Uh,
rest in peace. Again, all my love to the family.
Thank
But
you.
what would they tell me about a young Ron? Did they see, you said it was 7, I think, when you were in the Philippines when
Mhm.
you were like performing, but you said you were already singing. So were you already like come out the womb singing? Like,
Basically, because my mom used to like, sing me to sleep and she would
yeah,
just, hum. And like, I know that like at some point I started humming along with her.
beautiful.
That's always been kind of the story is that like I was singing along with her for the longest. And then, growing up Filipino, we're going to have karaoke parties and they're going to be lit.
Yeah.
So like I was definitely singing, but I don't think I ever necessarily thought like, oh, like I'm good. Like I didn't think that
Yeah.
at the time. And I don't think that was ever like fully
It was like
acknowledged.
career goals yet, because we're still like 5 years old right now. So
Yeah, exactly. And it
yeah.
was just like a thing that I did and it was fun. And obviously like something that my mom did. So like, just yeah, grew up humming and singing and
Were you
doing
into
all.
anything else? Were there like any other hobbies that you had back then that they said?
Um, oh, I used to. Oh, well, this was like not necessarily like 0 to 5. This was more so like again 7 years old.
Okay. We're moving into 5 to 10 now.
Yeah, okay. Because I used to like. I mean, this is also related to singing in a way. I used to make music videos in my head, like in my room, like to like songs like Britney Spears or like
Like, we all did the dance routines.
We all did the dance routines, yes. But I would make up whole storylines. Okay. Like whole storylines about like, okay, like at this point she's over here and she's talking to this boy, but then he doesn't want anything to do with her, so she walks away and she's like, whatever, I don't care. Like it was a whole thing in my head and I would act it out for my parents.
Hey, you're not alone. I don't think that's crazy or nothing, because when you would hear a new track, like I know the music video for this and the storyline to go along with that video. I'm right. With you. Yes.
Yeah. So I was doing that at a very young age. And I was also like super into superheroes. I was really, really into X-Men. Okay. I'm actually like right now I'm like rewatching X-Men Evolution because I did 97 and I did, the original series. Now I'm like, okay, let me like rewatch this series, because I was obviously like way more into the animated series, like the original 90s cartoon. Yeah. But like rewatching it now, I'm like, oh, this is also lit. Like this is also good. But yeah, that was like my childhood was just singing comic books, X-Men, and that was it. Yeah, I'm like,
I love that. So the nerdiness started coming in between 5 and 10. And what was it about the X-Men that? Because I'm curious for all of us, what brings us to certain characters. Like for me, as you see, like Spider-Man, being that nerd, that awkward kind of cat. Yeah. Being around people, but knowing, you wanted to do more with great responsibility, and all of that. But also with X-Men, which you don't really see here, but as a person of color, and, you're of many shades, Yeah. That's where we connect with, because we felt slightly different than everyone else.
Exactly. And I think that's what gravitated me toward them without like consciously knowing that.
Yeah.
I think, like retrospectively, like looking back, I'm like, oh yeah, well, like obviously I resonated with like feeling like an outsider, feeling different, and not necessarily celebrated for those differences. And you see, so I think that's what like really pulled me toward the X-Men. On top of it just being like dope,
Of course. So in that 5 to 10 range, we're learning about ourselves. We're learning about life. We're finding out who we are. We're also, learning about our sexuality. But I'm not sure if that really strikes you then at that time. But I know what struck me between this time is obviously growing up in America, person of color is, I am a person of color, and racism coming into it. With being half Black Filipino, and how we know how some aunties and uncles are still, are and everything. I've seen it happen with my friends that are the mixed kids and Black and Filipino and just all of that, right? When did you become into that awareness, and how did that affect you? Did you talking to your parents about that? Can you tell me any of that for your story?
I think like my dad always made it very clear. He was like, you are both. You are Filipino and you are Black.
Love that.
I remember that because I think this had to be like 3rd grade. We had like, it wasn't like a SAT or a pre-SAT, but like it was like something like standardized testing. And I'm sure you've heard this story many times. I'm sure you've experienced where you're filling in the box. And I remember being like, I don't know how to fill this out. And I told the teacher that, because it was like, you're required to do one, like circle one. And I was like, there's like, I don't, does not compute. And there was no like other option either. But I remember my white teacher, bless her heart, but she actually like presented it to the class. Really, really awkward. Like I remember like at some point because I was just like, I don't know what to put, and like literally just being like, what should I put, like to the other kids in my class, the other white kids, and like in my class, and they were like, oh, you're Black. You're Black. Which was like kind of my first experience in like at least that I can remember of being put into like a position where I had to pick and like realizing like, oh, I don't necessarily read as Filipino, right?
Yeah.
So that was definitely like the first moment into like really questioning like, oh, like, who am I? Because, my dad, again, like before this, I do remember like very much instilling in me, like, you are both. But then the world happens to you. And I never necessarily received that energy outwardly from other family members. At least as far as I can remember, I think like it was mostly when I would go to school.
Yeah.
Or when I was like, when I was like around other kids where it was very much like, oh, the Filipino side of me doesn't exist to these other people. They don't see that.
Yeah.
And so that was really big. And like, even now, I'm so blessed to like now have a wonderful community of like many different people, but like of Filipino people that like embrace me, like, because I am like, that's who I am. Like, we're all family, but like,
it was so crushing though. I'll speak for myself. Like, I was in Filipino enough for the Filipinos, and I wanted it to be so much darker, because I felt I couldn't relate with the white people that I was around.
Sure, yeah.
It was just soul crushing to just feel just such an outsider that you're not white enough, you're not Asian enough, none of that, and it just was crushing, and you had to find your own lane. That's where I felt like Peter Parker and an X-Man. I just wanted to be accepted.
Yeah. I think that's true. Like, I mean, going to the Philippines for the first time, I definitely was eye-opening for me. There were a lot of people talking about like my skin color there that I wasn't expecting. So like majority of my life, my mom was the only one that lived in the States. When I turned 15, one of my aunts moved out here for many years. But before that, it was just my mom, occasional visits. And then we would go out there. And there were a lot of comments about my dark complexion, and like some people being like, is that even your mom? Like, like,
yeah,
really, really horrible things that kind of just like you said, like it was soul crushing. It made me feel like this woman who like is my mother and is honestly my favorite person, like my favorite person. Yeah. You're telling me that like, because I'm just a few shades darker than her, that like, we're not mother and son. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. The fact we got like, skin lightening soaps and everything out. It's so
culture of like white, like,
yes.
Yeah. There's
I actually channeled that energy to now, and I don't know if you've done that as well. That's like what fuels me, to be so diligent in promoting self and love.
Yeah,
because I will not have that. I do not want my daughter to experience.
Yeah, I don't want like exactly. People like your daughter, or just like I don't want this younger generation to grow up in a world that only emphasizes white skin. Like
let's go.
Like, no, like we're all different and we're all beautiful. Like, let's put ourselves out there, which is another reason that I've been like, let me put my whole self into my art. Like,
yeah. So let's add into that. And I'm sure I know we're unpacking here. This is like therapy sometimes. Nothing but positive vibes, energies, but it's like so hopeful. And why I like having these conversations, because I think the listeners and everybody that watch and these things, why I do the ShoPowSho, we feel seen, and we're having this dialogue, which is so important, because that's terrible. All of that was terrible. And with you know, you're being a mixed kid, being Black and Filipino, but also, and they make us compartmentalize that when we're in those social circles, but also being part of the LGBTQIA community, a whole nother level of just, you know, vibes and energy that you just feel so, you know, you just want to scream.
Like, yeah, you just want to scream. You feel like you feel not fully seen. And I think that's like been my biggest realization, is like, oh, like for so long, you know, like I've always been like this sort of like melancholy, like artist, tortured artist type, you know, person, and not really knowing where that was coming from until recently. I started unpacking like, oh, it's because like I'm literally in these communities where like I want to be seen and fully valued for every part of me, but there's like in every situation I have to compartmentalize myself, and that's so frustrating. Because I just want to like, I just want to be like, hello.
Yeah. We got to break those bonds. So were you feeling that so when did you know you were gay? And as we lead into that, and then in school, I'm sure now.
So I definitely, retrospectively, I'm like, oh, I was having crushes on boys like kindergarten, you know what I'm saying? But hey, like
when Prince was doing all his things, I think Prince could turn anybody out.
Okay, no, it's true. But like I don't think I fully realized what that was at the time, and like obviously growing up like in a like heteronormative world, it's like but like I remember having thoughts like, oh, like, but I'll probably like end up with a girl like at some point, you know, like very early. But I think
because the society would push us that way.
Exactly. But it was definitely middle school where I fully realized like, oh God, like I like boys. Like I had a crush on like my 7th grade history teacher. And I remember actively being like, oh my gosh, this is what this is. And I'm so scared of anyone ever knowing about it. So I'm just not going to say anything. And just like, that's where like I remember actively having that like thought. And oh man, it was just like years and years of just like hiding and lying and just not wanting to be myself, on like hating myself. To the point where I couldn't even share myself even with people that like I knew full well would accept me. Like my mom was my favorite person.
Yeah.
And it was very hard for me to come out to even her. For years, and even when I did eventually come out, I came out when I was 18. I didn't fully, I told everyone that I was experimenting. I think that was the safest way for me to.
That was the word.
But even then it was like being male, you know, like there's still some stigma with that. So it was definitely uncomfortable. But yeah, going back, I went to a Christian school from kindergarten to 12th grade.
So you were in the trenches.
I was. And not only that, I was also like, especially in high school, I led worship. so I was seen as a leader in like the community, but also as a like a Christian. Like
Yeah.
I was a rule follower, you know, like I again didn't want to rock the boat. I
Yeah.
just wanted to like, you know, I was a very good student and I just wanted to just go through go through the motions. And I
Yeah.
think in a lot of ways that like really hindered me from being like a full person
Yeah.
even. Because there were just parts of myself I didn't want to explore and I didn't want anyone to know about. So I would just hide behind this perfect student, this worship leader, this person that I created. It's like, you know, still resonates with me. That person is still me, but like there were just so many layers of hiding that I look at that person and I'm like, I don't recognize them.
Mm.
But yeah, it man, the just so many years of just like really, really hating myself.
Yeah.
And that was, you know, that was the world. The world did that to me.
Yeah. I think once we, yeah, it's, you take that as fuel. You got to take that as fuel now, because
Mhm.
fuck that. It's just like when you've cried your last cry, you know, and just everything that you've gone through in life, you just got to say fuck it. Literally, excuse my language. That's like I'm such on a power positive train now.
I agree with you.
That's
Like,
that
fuck
why
it.
this energy has to
Like,
go. Yeah.
no, I 100% agree with you. You know, sometimes I look back and I'm like, damn, it sucks that it took me so long
Yeah.
to like accept myself so that I could become a fully, like, I feel like a human now. Like, I
Yes.
joke. No, but I joke about this with like my high school friends, you know, like I only like really talk to two of them now. And we usually, every time we get together, we talk about the trauma of like growing up at a Christian school and just like all of that. But like, it's always just like, we talk about how like, I just didn't feel like I could become a person until I was out of that environment.
Yeah.
And just like meeting other people that like I felt safe enough to like reveal myself to without
Yeah.
lying, without hiding, without, you know, any of that. And just like fully accepting me. I feel like if I had had that at an earlier part of my life, maybe things would be different. Those are the things that I think about. But like at the same time, I'm like, but you can't go back. So
Yeah.
you're here and you're like, this is now. And like, you're where you're at now. So like, just keep going, babe. You
Keep
know?
going and just draw energy from that. And I think that's
Exactly.
why it's so important
That,
to say that, and so important to talk about it for this new generation that might feel encapsulated and bound by those restrictions. So we're trying to help y'all out here through our life's journeys right now. So everybody listening, watching this when they watch it. So Ron, thank you for sharing, because that's so personal and so deep. And but you know, like, but we that's where we're gonna take energy from, because we're gonna not let that happen to ourselves anymore, and we're not let that happen to anybody else that's watching this right now and going on this journey, because it's so important. And that's how we can make this. That's how we can feel empowered now. So I'm sorry, we're getting sidetracked. I can see these therapy sessions in it. I don't know if it helps you, but it helps
oh, it,
me. So I'm just, you know, we're taking that
like you
in.
said, we're empaths. So like, I'm on the same level as you. Like we could, like, this is fine.
Love, 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 love. So we're in high school. We're 10. We're now in school years, because we went to 0 to 5, 5 to 10. School years now, right? We have a love for music. We fell in love at 7 in the Philippines, but now we're in school. And when we have a love for the arts, I'm sure, as you know, uh, depending on where you're at, like at first I wanted to be a comic book artist, because you know, drawing X-Men, Spider-Man, all of that, right? But then when you get professional training, it's not the same as the stuff you have, because now you got to do still life, and this stuff is boring. What was that like for you in regards to like creative arts music? Because like, okay, I want to be a musician, but now you got to learn how to treble clef, all of that. When
Oh
you
yeah.
have that whole learning educational side of things, what was that like for you when you found out, okay, you wanted to pursue it? What was that in your school years, then leading
Um,
into college and all of that?
yeah. So the earliest memory I have is actually fifth grade of like we were gonna have a a graduation ceremony to go into middle school. And so they were asking people like to like share some talents or whatever. And I was like, oh, it'd be fun. Like I came up to my friends actually. And I was like, would you like to sing this song with me? And it was, oh my gosh, what was it? It was a Michelle Williams from Destiny's Child. It was on her first album. I can't remember the name of the song right now, but I remember I brought it to them because, Christian school, and she had like a gospel album. So I was like, oh, this would be
I
appropriate.
remember she had a track here or
Yeah.
two back
Yeah.
then.
And so I brought it to my friends, and I remember I was singing it because I was going to teach it to them. And they were like, excuse me, you can sing. And I remember being like, what? Like, so embarrassed. Like, no, like, this is for fun. Like, this is like, whatever. They were like, no, like, you need to do this on your own. Like, sing it. And then eventually I ended up scrapping the Michelle Williams song. I love you, Michelle. But, I sang, You Are the Wind Beneath My Wings. For that graduation ceremony, and that was my first time performing for people like in front, like outside of like karaoke things, or like, that was my first time like singing for people.
Yeah.
And I just remember getting the rush from that. And so in middle school I was like, oh, I need to join the choir. Like, I don't know where, like, I don't know what part of the day it is, but like I need to be in choir class.
Yeah.
And so sixth, seventh, and eighth grade, I was in choir. And I remember in eighth grade is when we started learning music theory. I was like, you about to make me want to quit.
Yo.
I was not, what I was really into was ear training. Cause like, obviously, like, I was learning by ear. So like, I would just like sing along to something and then like pick it up really quick. But when you had to like write it down
Yes.
and read it, that's where I was like, maybe this isn't for me. Like, that was my initial thought. But then I was like, no, let me push through this. Like, especially because it was like eighth grade. Like, please, like, learn your treble clef, learn your bass clef, like, just learn the basics at least.
Yeah.
And at the time I was only singing. So I remember maybe this was like, so after eighth grade choir was done and I went into high school, my arts program at the school, because again, I went to the same school from from
Yeah.
preschool to 12th grade. There were two different campuses, but the same school. So when I went into ninth grade, the arts program shut down.
No.
Yes. So I didn't have I didn't have the music class or the choir classes that I was expecting to take. Like, I wasn't getting that education that I wanted. And that's when, yeah, that is actually when I decided. I was like, well, I want to take some kind of music class like outside of this. Like, and my dad was like trying to encourage me to take up piano, which I was like, okay, but then I was like, let me take up guitar though. Like, let me take some guitar lessons.
Okay.
And so, yeah, in ninth grade, because I didn't have the like arts programs in school, I ended up taking lessons outside of school with the lady that played guitar and ran worship at our church.
Okay.
And so that's when I started like actually like learning music theory and learning how to
Wow.
play and strum and pick. And we I don't consider myself a guitarist by any means. At this point in my life, I'm like, I just use it to write. And I give
Oh,
it to other people to actually do it because I'd much rather focus on like singing.
okay.
Um, but yeah, so that's when I started playing guitar, and like I don't remember what started this for me, but I very early on when I was still learning chords, I was already like, oh, what if I like put these chords together and just started singing like whatever came to mind. And
Uh,
that's really when I started writing music.
okay.
Started writing songs, and eventually in about sophomore year of high school, I got pretty okay at guitar, enough for me to be like to ask to be a part of the school's worship team.
Okay.
And that's kind of where my like outlet as far as like music and performing went, in those years, like sophomore year to senior year. I was just like leading worship, and that was kind of like my main outlet outside of writing. I was writing on my own, but like as far as like performing for other people, that's kind of where that was for me for those years.
Wonderful. Oh, I have so many questions like here and there that I got
Okay, yeah.
sidetracked, but I wanted to hear this beautiful story. So thank you.
Mhm.
Um, Let me go back to changing that voice change because I was in choir too from like I want to say six to like when you started all the way to to senior year. I was in
Yeah.
choir. I was part of a boys quartet. We were singing like I was an R&B cat too. So we were
Okay.
like, and I'm in the 90s. I graduated high school in 96. So we
Okay.
were
Okay.
singing like Jodeci, Shy, Silk, Boys to
Yes.
Men.
Yes.
That
Yes.
was me,
Yes.
all for one. But then when my voice changed,
Oh
I couldn't
boy.
like sing the same way. Like, your
Uh-huh.
voice gets deeper and all that. I was a tenor,
Okay. Yeah.
alto tenor and everything. But what was that?
Mhm.
How was that experience for you as a singer when that voice changed? Do you remember that?
You know what's funny is like I remember being like, "Oh, I'm so nervous for when my voice changes," but it happened so gradually for me that I didn't necessarily know. There were definitely times where I was like, "Oh, I can't sing it. I can't sing the song in a certain key the way that I used to." But I think it happened so gradually that it wasn't as noticeable as I think in my head I was expecting it to be. Because I do remember like in sixth grade being like, especially when I was getting super into singing and like
Yeah.
in choir and stuff, I was like, oh, when my voice changes, like I won't be able to, because I was a tenor and I still, that's the thing is like I'm still a tenor, like more of a baritone than anything else, but like I
Yeah.
still sing pretty high, like my voice still sits higher like than other people. So
Yeah.
it I think it was more of the build up to it that was more of the like stressful thing than the actual like when it happened.
Yeah. I was doing Tevin Campbell.
Oh boy.
I was
See
all about Tevin,
that's the thing is like I
and I
wasn't
couldn't do
touching
Tevin no
Kevin
more.
Campbell.
I couldn't do Tevin no more. I'm like, ah, it hurts.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I ain't touching Tevin Campbell then. I ain't touching Tevin Campbell now.
But that's
That's
where my voice was. Now, as you can tell, is this voice used to do Tevin Campbell.
oh yeah. Yeah.
Crazy. So, what were some of your inspirations that led? So you picked up the guitar, you started
Mhm.
writing.
Yeah.
Who were some of the artists that inspired Ron
Um,
Blakely?
uh gosh. I used to listen. He's not very well known, but like I used to listen to this guy named Tyrone Wells.
Okay.
He's a pop folk singer songwriter. I just loved him, and I think it was also because like a lot of his music sounded like the worship music that I was like performing, so like it just really resonated with me. But I also because again, I did grow up like listening to Stevie and Al
Yeah.
Green, all that. So those influences were always there. But as far as songwriting goes, I was more into like Sarah Bareilles and like,
Oh yeah.
Jason Mraz, those type of like folky singer-songwriter type of singers. So that I think those were the people that I definitely early on, especially in high school, that's who I listened to a lot more.
So how do you write? How does Ron Blakely, when you want to, when you're inspired? I know you went through a rut now, and we're coming out of that now, and we're fully inspired because we're living in our true self now, Ron. But what was that like back then when you were writing? Because you had obviously you're restrained with life and yourself because it wasn't until 18, right? And we're still unpacking all that. But so how did Ron write back then? How did you kind of?
Ron wrote. It's funny because I look at like old songs that I'd written when I was in high school, and they were all about like not like feeling like I needed someone to save me, because I was so just not like I didn't feel like I could save myself. I wrote a lot of worship songs too, like a lot of songs. There's one song, oh my gosh, let me see if I can remember. It was like, why do I feel like my life's about to fall? Why do I feel like just ending it all? Like, stuff like that, where it was just like, oh, this is dark, Ronald.
We're screaming in our music. We're screaming.
I was screaming. I was like, I'm just like, and, like I could go through notebooks of like just, it was all very melancholy. It was all very like, not, very dark, very unhappy.
Yeah.
And it's wild now, because I still write from a melancholy place, but there's a lot more hope now. I look at the words that I used to write, and it was almost like I was searching for a sense of hope before. And now it's like, no, I know what hope feels like. I know that hope is the end goal. I know I can see hope. Which is such a beautiful thing.
Yes.
But yeah, just very.
Yes. So did you, so in school, getting ready to graduate, you found your love in music. Were there any other things though that besides that you saw? Did you know when you graduate, going off to school, that this is what you wanted to do, and the family?
Absolutely. Like, that's the thing is like,
backup plans,
but the thing is like growing up brown, like you kind of have to have a backup plan. There's no other option. Right? Have a backup plan. So I went to college. At first I was just like, my favorite subject in school was English. Okay. So I was like, okay, I'll just get like a literature degree and like be done with it, like just to do it, just to appease my dad, really. My dad was like, get a degree, but also go to med school. And I was like, that's actually not going to happen. So I'll at least get a degree.
So they were doing that push that all.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Arts is cool as fun, but it's not a career.
Mm-hmm. It's wild because I think this is also just because my mom did kind of grow up from very humble beginnings and like was a military wife, and so like it wasn't necessarily her priority for me to be like, oh, get your degree, do that. But my dad, on the other hand, was very much, you need to go to school, you need to get your degree, you need to do all these things. Yeah. But also like I was lucky enough that my parents weren't necessarily like, don't do music,
Wonderful.
But also it's nice that you're doing music, but like don't like this isn't like a career. There was always that kind of like, oh, okay, You're not saying it, but I know you feel this. So yes, I ended up going to school for English, but then kind of ended up falling into musical theater. I was very close with a lot of like, and this happened naturally. Like a lot of my close friends ended up being theater kids. And so I took a theater class and I was like, oh no, it wasn't even a theater class. My second semester of freshman year, I went to it was like, I forgot, like a club orientation, like a bunch of different clubs were just
Yeah.
basically like, join us.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the musical theater club came up to me and now I laugh because I'm like, oh, that's so funny. But they were doing a musical that required a black guy.
Oh.
Like there's a certain character that needed to be like was
Yeah.
written to be a black man, and so they were like, "Do you sing?" And I was like, "I do sing." They were
Uh-huh.
like, "Do you act?" And I was like, I've never really tried that, but like, why not?"
Yeah.
And like, literally had me audition for them on the spot. Yeah. I think they were just, I went to a mostly white college.
Whoa.
So they were just like, oh, a person of color.
Yeah.
Let's,
Awkward, but
yeah,
it's
but
also
then
fun
I
to
did a,
describe in a way awkwardly. The joke
yes,
is across.
exactly.
Yeah.
But they were like, "Oh my gosh, you're actually good." So ended up getting to do that, and that was my first like musical theater show I ever did. And the one of the theater professors actually saw me in the show, and she was like, "I need you to take some of our classes because I
Okay.
like what you did."
Yeah.
Like, okay, let me try this out. At the time I was like, I'm just trying, like I'm just taking the required classes. Like I'm not really like, sure, let me go ahead and do a theater class.
Yeah.
Boy, that English major very quickly became a theater arts major. Very quickly after my first acting class, I was like, okay, I love this.
Yeah. Yeah. You find
um,
yourself.
hmm
Yeah.
And that's when I really did find myself. That's when I met the people that made me feel comfortable enough to be myself.
Oh, lovely.
And that's kind of where it started for me, was doing some musical theater. Uh,
Yes. Yeah. It's crazy as creatives as I was a theater kid too. I was in, again, choir, theater, drama. Um, because we compartmentalize our inner selves, but
mhm.
yet we act out other people's lives. It's so weird, it's that yin and yang that we talk about, and that's how we find ourselves,
Right. But I think,
which is crazy. It's so weird. You know what I'm talking about. I'm trying to, yeah. We play other people because we're afraid of ourselves. It's
right.
it's
But then
weird, dude.
but that's the thing, is like when you
Yeah,
step into other people's shoes and you become other people, you discover
yeah,
parts of yourself that maybe you weren't even aware of.
yes,
And that was the beauty in theater. That was like the beauty in like acting and performing that I fell in love with, was like, oh my gosh, like in me becoming these characters and really having to like, I was really pushed to like, because again, I was this like this shy person who like didn't really want to accept parts of myself, and I was forced to do that in these
mm,
classes, like because there's like you're either gonna like give a bad performance or you're gonna do the
yeah,
work. And so like that's the beauty, is like you start to discover like, oh, there's parts of I relate to that, like, and that makes you realize, oh, like who you are, like becoming
yes,
other people helps you become you, like that's
yeah, yeah.
the like wild part.
It's life be life in, but the blessings of life that can be found through our art is so important and so important. So
Yeah.
we're in college, we're finding ourselves. um I forgot what. So I think you said you were 18. So this is now like, hey, family, this is who I am.
Yeah.
How did that feel? Um, how was that? And just, into coming into Ron Blakely now, you
Yeah.
know?
The first person I came out to in my family was my mom. And it's actually a really cute story. Like, I was super nervous, and I remember calling her and being like, "Hey, mom, can I meet, can I come over, or like, can we have dinner together?" I wanted to do it in person. I was like,
Yes.
I made it
Yeah.
a whole, like, I wanted to do it in person. I was like, and I guess I sounded super nervous to her, which makes sense. But she was like, "What do you want to talk about?" Like, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, it's just like, honestly, it's just stuff about, it's about me." And she was like, "Are you doing bad in school?" Like, of course, that's like, "Are you okay?" Like,
That
how are your
sounds like a
grades? Like,
mom right there.
yeah, yeah. I was like, "Oh, no, no, that's fine." I was like, "It's just about me." And she was like, "Okay, um, are you liking?" And I was like, "Liking what?" She was like, "Boys."
So like she knew.
She knew. Mama knew. Mama knew. Mama knew. Mama knew.
Yes.
And I was just like, first of all, I had this like overwhelming sense of relief, but also like, I was like, yeah, something like that. And she said, "Why not?"
Oh,
Oh, when I tell you that was the most freeing, oh my
yes.
gosh. After I told her, I was like, I don't care who else. I don't even, I don't care. Like, that was it for me. Like,
Yes.
and to get that immediate, like, I don't know what I was expecting from her, honestly. I don't know. I think I was just trying to block out whatever response I could
Yeah.
like possibly come up with. But to
Oh,
just get that like immediate, like, okay, and
yeah. Yeah.
like,
Oh,
yeah, why not? Like,
yes.
yes, that's you. And like we started crying and just like,
Whew.
I,
Yeah.
she told me like, "I love you for who you are. I don't care. Like, um, you're always gonna be my kid. You're always gonna be my son. You're perfect." She said, "You're perfect the
Mm.
way you're made." And I want, like, that is a line that I put into one of my songs on Blue, is "You're perfect the way you're made," because I will never forget that she said that to me.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, after that point, I was coming out to my sisters. Most of my family, they were like, "Okay,"
Yeah.
we knew. My dad was definitely a little rougher. He was like, "I'm fine with it," but it was also like, maybe we don't talk about it, like, amongst other family members, like, maybe we just keep this
Yeah.
between us, which, there's still times where I think about that and I'm like, I have
Yeah.
some bitterness toward that
Yeah.
response, but I also feel like my dad was meeting me
Halfway, I
where he
guess.
could. Yeah,
Yeah.
like,
The
that's
best
where,
he could.
the best he could.
Yeah.
Um, so there's just like an overwhelming sense of forgiveness to him,
Yeah.
especially now, having lost him. There's just like a lot of like, I think in the past year, like couple of years of like sitting down and just like forgiving him for a lot of things, that I wasn't able to do while he was still here.
Yeah.
Because I think at the end of the day, my dad loved me as deeply as he could,
Yes.
and just wanted the best for me. And at that time, in his worldview, in his way, he thought that keeping it just between us even was like also keeping me safe,
Mm. Mm.
which, you know what, ended up being true. Because years later, this was after my dad had passed. My sister had said that one of my relatives was going around being like, "There's a rumor that your brother is gay." And she was like, a rumor. First of all, she was like, a rumor? That's crazy. And I was like, that is crazy because it's not a rumor. Let it be known.
Yeah.
So I did go onto Facebook. I remember because like I was like, this is the only way that I can maybe like just get this out into the open to like extended family that maybe I don't necessarily see every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was just like, I am queer. I am happy, and I have been for many years.
Yes, yes.
And just leave it at that. And now family functions are a lot different, especially on my dad's side of the family. That particular family member is actually a problem for most.
That says it all right there.
Yeah. Like that particular family member is a problem for like a majority of the family. So they are still present at some events, some functions, but overall, like just after that happened, like that was just everyone knew. Like for years, especially on my dad's side of the family, it was like people kind of like my cousins that I was close to kind of knew, but like I didn't really talk about it because that's like kind of the agreement that I had with my dad.
Yeah.
But after that, it was just kind of like, well, the cat's out of the bag.
Yeah. And we can't live in that. We can't live
in that. Like I can't live in that. We can't live in that. I can't have a fully fleshed relationship with some of my family unless that's like known.
Yeah.
So now it's after that, I was like, okay, we're out here.
Yes.
And that was a big moment. And that happened like in the last 4 years. Like my dad passed in 2021. So that was, that was very recent.
Gotcha. Well, again, we are now living our whole true authentic self. And we are celebrating that because we are an artist. We are pushing forward, and in order to do that, we need to have that energy. And we have Blue that kind of birthed through some of this, and it's going to be the first of many, I'm sure, Ron. And we're going to be supporting you 110% with all of that. So as we started earlier, some of these life experiences helped formulate these tracks. In Blue, is this I think it's an EP about 6 tracks?
Yes. So it's right now it's about 5, but
okay.
Honestly, like I'm still like there's still some songs where I'm like maybe I should add that. So it's 5 to 6 right now.
Okay.
But it's for sure there are 5 songs that are like this will absolutely be on the project.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So rewinding it back a little bit upon that. So after we graduated with music, now, what was that like? Yeah, we kind of skipped around, but like, so post school, now we got to get a job or we're going to be an artist, but you've done a lot of touring I've seen, but then you stepped away because of the family thing. Yes. Can we fill in some of those gaps with music? Yeah. And then you obviously return to it.
Yeah. So like, after school, I ended up kind of joining forces with another songwriter. He was a guitar player, which I felt like was like, okay, this is big because, like I said earlier, I don't necessarily consider myself a guitarist. I just use it to write and then give it to other people. But then this guy came along and he was already like, he's not a singer. He's like, I could play chords or I could come up with these beautiful melodies on the guitar, but like, I want to write like songs. Okay. Like I want to write like pop songs. Like, so we kind of
partner to a music.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
So for a couple of years, that's, we're writing together, like he would send me some like guitar chords that he like came up with. And then I would like write a melody and lyrics to it. And like, we put together a whole project. This was in, 2015, 2016. We put together a whole project. It was it was my first time in a studio. I was very green to everything when it came to songwriting and recording and really knowing my voice too.
Yeah.
So I listened back to some of that project and I'm like, ew. But it is like, it's all a journey, but it's fine. But that was like 2015, 2016. We kind of put out like a whole album called Who I Am. And again, that now that I think about it, a lot of those songs were like about me wanting to spread my wings, wanting to be out in the open, wanting to be myself, who I am. Like, and so we were performing a lot in LA, and then some personal stuff happened with him that I don't necessarily want to get into, but like some personal stuff happened with him, and that kind of put us on pause. And it was right after we had just released the album.
Wow, and that
we just released it, and then immediately stuff was going on, and I was like, okay. And this was like 3 years of working together, performing together, writing together, and we just stopped. And that was definitely a moment where I was like, oh God, I don't know what to do.
No, momentum killer.
Momentum dead. Like it was gone. Momentum gone. And just kind of starting from scratch. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't feel inspired anymore. I don't feel anything. So that's kind of when I went back into doing more theater, and musical theater, and just like performing locally.
And how is that? I'm sorry, we did touch on that earlier, because we did, we started with music and then we had theater a little bit there. And then you found yourself a lot more. So just how beautiful is that? Is that just music is number one in theater, like right there's a number two? I'm being a creative myself. I'm a filmmaker and I'm an actor. I'm talking to you right now. I love hosting and talking to other talents, getting that energy infusion. Can we speak on that to be in regards to just how that helps your soul in different ways in expression?
Yeah. I think there's a vulnerability. There's a vulnerability to both of those like mediums. Songwriting is, and like performing my own music definitely is just like way more vulnerable. I think in a lot of ways at that time, especially, I needed to kind of escape from myself for a little bit and become other people. So that's what theater became for me. Like, it was still an outlet for me to express myself creatively, and also like just feel like I'm still working on my craft and still like growing in that without the pressure that I would put on myself to to show up as fully myself. Which in a way, sometimes I look back at that time and I'm like, oh, well, that was also me kind of like hiding myself a little bit too. But I just felt like I wasn't ready to share myself in that way anymore. Like at that point. And I was like, at a certain point, it felt like, am I just going to go straight into just doing theater? And like, that's the path for me. But then theater becomes its whole thing. That industry is it's wild. It's definitely it's difficult to navigate as a brown person. It's difficult to navigate as a bigger person as well. Like there were a lot of roles that I remember auditioning for that I didn't get cast in, and it definitely made me question the reasoning behind why. And some of those questions then later became confirmed, but that's like a whole other story. But you know what I mean? That's a whole other story. But yeah, essentially, like, I learned very quickly that I was like, okay, theater, while it is an outlet for me and I do love doing it, it's not necessarily the career that I see for myself.
Gotcha.
And like, so 2016 to 2020 was kind of that span of like learning that. Um, and yeah, then when 2020 happened, it was just like, but even before, like, when did I start doing? No, this was like all of the like touring and like being a background, like singing backgrounds, all of that started happening after 2020.
Okay.
Yeah, like my kind of return into performing non-musical theater, acting, like that all happened in that era.
And you needed that, like that transition needed to happen to figure out that, okay, this was that what I needed it for, but now it's this.
Yeah, now it's
Yeah.
this. And it also, like, just going back into like the theater era,
Yeah.
um, I made so many wonderful friends, like so many incredible connections that have lasted even now. Like a majority of the people that are supporting me are from
Mm,
that community.
yeah.
Like really from college on, like a lot of like my lifelong friends, those are theater people.
Yeah.
So theater always like it holds a special place in my heart because
Oh yeah.
that's where like my people, like those were the people that really, like I became myself through doing that.
Yes. So it'll always be there, always be in your heart. But music is what truly is your heart in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
Um,
It's,
so
oh, sorry.
no worries. I'm sorry. It's giving me time. It brings us to where we're at, coming full circle in all of that. With Blue, again, please support Ron Blakely uh, to make Blue happen. Again, links are in the description below. Follow, subscribe, all the things with Ron. Let's make this happen. Donate. Um, so we're gonna make Blue a reality. What
Yes.
do we want to speak after Blue? So you're writing tracks for this. We're gonna make this happen. So with this journey that we went on, Ron,
Mhm.
and you sharing your story, and I'm so thankful that you did that, and it's inspiring me, and I'm sure gonna inspire everybody else to know that, oh, I went through that. I've been through that, and we can survive all of that
Yes.
and come out better on the other side and still be so beautiful and so loving. What are we? So what are plans for Ron Blakely? What are we gonna do with Blue? Because we're gonna make that happen. What's on kind of your forecast? What are some of your goals that you're gonna try and make happen?
Um, okay, so right now I have I want to go on tour, man.
Let's
But
go.
no, yeah, like no, actually like I want to be able to fund my own tour, even if it's of Blue and another project. I just want to be able to perform my music, share my music with like people outside of just Southern California.
SoCal, yeah,
Like I want to go.
yeah.
That's kind of the stuff that I've been praying for, manifesting, trying to, just bring in, call in, is
Hmm.
that opportunity to, once this project is complete,
Yeah.
put it like actually go out into the streets.
Love it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay, okay. I love that you said that because one of my goals with ShoPowSho, with all the amazing talent that I've been able to meet, interview, and talk to, I want to have like a show convention type thing, but
Yeah.
slash tour to just
Yeah.
community. Let's
Hmm.
get together and talk and support because there's so many beautiful talents that we all have, and yeah, it all can go along with that. Because I've had so many comedians and actors and filmmakers and performers, singers and musicians that Man, there's definitely a tour in there. If not like a one-day show convention type deal, like we can do a tour.
Exactly. Like, let's
Manifest
bring it.
energy.
Manifest it. Let's bring it. Let's bring it to other places. Let's go.
I love that.
Sign me up.
Anybody, so in regards to making all that happen as a musician, as a creative, as a performer, we mentioned some of your inspirations earlier. Would you love to, is there anybody you'd love to collaborate with?
Teddy Swims. That man is a genius.
Okay.
I love Teddy Swims. Yeah. That
Nice.
I would love to do it. I just love the soul in his voice, the grit. Like I have a very similar tone. Like I just feel like we could make something cool.
A lot of people are heading out to Nashville, which is crazy. I'm not a big country person, but so many people that are non-country people are heading out to Nashville.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know why I said that, but it's just.
But no,
just
but
it's funny
that you mentioned that because
right now,
Nashville is like definitely on the list of like places I want to like at least explore.
Yeah.
I have a friend out there, so we've been like chatting about like once I get kind of blue.
Yeah.
Done, like chatting about at least like coming out to like visit and like, you know, exploring. So but yeah, that seems to be the place for a lot of like music.
Yeah, for right now, it's weird. I've always been like a hip hop R&B guy, you know, pop, you know, and when I was in the military, I got into like the whole Europe techno EDM scene. Thank you, Ron, for this is just always a delight, and I hope we got to explore things and to help you remember why you are who you are, why you're not going to ever return to certain things, and how we're just going to stay inspired and creative and flowing with this energy. And here for you. Thank you. Because it means so much when we share and open our hearts and energy. So all the love, Ron. Good luck with all of that, man. And please come back and let's talk our journeys and, you know, see where we're at now and how we're going to help each other with our journeys.
Yes, I'll be back. Thank you so much. This was wonderful and super cathartic for me. Like this was definitely like you said, like being able to kind of go through the timeline and being like, oh, this is how far you've come. Like not like actively knowing that, but like actively doing it. It was like, oh, yeah, this is the journey of life. Like you're here.
Yes. And we're here to support you and sending you nothing but love. I love to close out with one question. Because it's Nerds Rule the World is the mothership of ShoPowSho now. It used to be the Nerds of Color, which I'm still affiliated with, but Nerds Rule the World is my own entity. I like to end off with like a nerdy question, just the kind of poppy positive thing. If you were to give a TED talk on anything that you're super nerdy about, it can't be about music because we already know you're a musician. I already know you love the X-Men.
So I can't say that again.
Yeah, you can't do X-Men. But what is something that you are nerdy about that not a lot of people know about? And it could be, I've had people say that they're so nerdy about law, about exactly. I've heard so many different plants, everything. What is something so weird or different or not but just no one would know that you could like give a dissertation on or give a whole like TED style talk on that not a lot of people know about?
Okay, wait, give me a second to think about that.
No worries. I'm gonna just remind people, Blue, y'all, support Ron Blakely music. Again, links in the description below. Also head over to his website. His tour dates are there. But let's make this happen and let's manifest this for such a great human being in Ron Blakely.
Thank you. Right. Okay, I figured it out. Okay, like only like my super close friends and like my college friends really know this, but I had an obsession with penguins growing up.
Okay.
I don't know. So I know I think that I could give a dissertation or at least a TED talk on like the different types of penguins and where they're located.
Really? Emperor penguin, just all of that. Like where we're
So yeah, so it's funny because like I had this obsession for forever, and like oh, this is hilarious. I actually, just to show you how deep it goes, this was a birthday gift. I think
Aw,
it was my like 19th birthday. My friend Leah painted this, and then a bunch of friends signed it.
yes.
And so I have like this is nothing compared to like if I went into my other room right now. There's penguin paraphernalia everywhere.
I'm here for it.
But that's definitely something that only like well now everyone knows.
Now everybody-
Like only I can show you even this. Oh my gosh, this is hilarious that I just have this like
Oh,
like
love
yeah.
it. Penguins are so cute. I love me
Oh
some
yeah.
penguins.
Yeah.
What was that movie with the penguins that they're like, which Happy Feet? Happy Feet was so good.
I
Yeah.
love that movie. I love
Yes.
that movie.
I
Mhm.
love it. Well, Ron, I love you. I love you for
Love
just
you too.
sharing because again, this is it's therapy, both
Yeah.
sides.
Yeah.
And just like while we might think our own life was some shit, we all go through shit and
No, that's it.
we
Yeah.
can still rise above it and keep it moving and keep, you know, uh doing things and changing the world for a better and just uh this is important that we have these conversations so that what we experience, no one else has to experience that again. And I'm so thankful for you and I'm so inspired by you. And please come back. Let's talk again. Oh, I added one other thing. As
Yeah.
I started earlier when I led off, I'm the Adobro, the Babinka boy, the leader of the Hala Hala Homies of the Senate Gang Gang. What is your favorite Filipino dish? Because that is, you need a new nickname, Ron, and I've got to put that into
Yeah.
your name.
Oh, I
Or are
love
you a Dobro? Are you a Babinka boy? What are you?
I okay, so
Kare kare?
I do love kare kare, but I love chicken afritada
Okay.
and pork sinigang.
Mm,
Those are like
your go-tos.
those are my go-tos. Like if that's not on the menu, honestly, fix it. Like if at least one of them is not on the menu, there's something wrong.
I love it. Okay. All right. So
Yeah.
those are the dishes, y'all. Whenever we get this tour going on, please get those dishes at the ready. We need them to get our energy up. And all right. Ron Sinigang. No, you said pork. Your
Yeah,
afritada. And
sinigang.
what was the other one?
Pork sinigang.
Pork Sinigang. Ron Sinigang.
Yes, that's
Ron
it.
Sinigang. That's your new name. I'm trying to come up with fun, creative stuff to close it out.
Yeah. I
Ron,
love
mahal kita. Thank you. Love you. I appreciate your time, your energy, and we're going to support you. Please come back. This has been beautiful. Salamat po. Everybody, that's another ShoPowSho. I'm Kuya P. Mahal kita. As always, salamat po. We out.